Two Afghans who arrived in Britain by small boat, meaning they were illegal immigrants, sexually assaulted a 15-year-old English girl months after their arrival. In local reporting of the incident, the local law enforcement reported the two 17-year-old Afghans as boys and the 15-year-old victim as a young woman. Them weren't the only misrepresentations the local police made regarding this case. Daily Mail. Authorities accused of attempting to cover up blank involving two Afghan migrants by describing them as boys from Leamington Spa and child victim as young woman. Another example of the media's perfidy. Authorities have been accused of attempting to cover up a child blank involving two Afghan migrants, which shocked the country, the Daily Mail can reveal. The police and judiciary are alleged to have shrouded the case of Jan Jahanzeb and Israr Nahalzeh in secrecy from start to finish after they were arrested for blanking a schoolgirl. The teenagers were jailed last Monday for abducting and blanking the 15-year-old girl in the picturesque town of Leamington Spa, Warwickshire, leading to widespread public outcry. But despite arriving in the UK by small boat just months before the attack, the two asylum seekers were described by Warwickshire police as two 17-year-old boys from Leamington when charges were announced, while their victim, a child, was referred to as a young woman. Well, I guess it's not just a two-tier system of justice that Great Britain has, but a two-tier system of reporting, huh? Then in a move later criticized by a senior judge, the boys stood trial before a youth court, meaning members of the public could not attend, and strict anonymity rules were in place. Their identities were only revealed when the case was sent to Warwick Crown Court for sentencing, and the Daily Mail mounted a successful legal challenge to anonymity restrictions. Yeah, luckily here in the United States, we have real freedom of speech. Lambasting how the case was handled by a lower court, Judge Sylvia D. Bertodano said it was very surprising and unfortunate the two boys had not been immediately sent before the Crown Court given the real seriousness of the offenses. Well, we know how, I'm sure if they were convicted of or if they were charged with a speech crime, they would have had the book thrown at them and they would have been in the Crown Court instead of with the youth services. The latest transparency fiasco comes just months after the Daily Mail revealed the same police force was being accused of attempting to hush up the immigration status of two other Afghan asylum seekers charged with blanking a 12-year-old in nearby Nuneaton for fear of inflaming community tensions. Man, the treason is just unbelievable. Jan Jahanzeb, 17, led the girl away from her friends and was caught on video covering her mouth as she tried to scream for help from passers-by. Last night, critics warned the true nature of criminal cases involving migrants were being concealed from the public by the police and the judiciary. Well, I mean, haven't they been doing that for decades with the grooming gang cases? Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick said the police appear to have lied to the public in order to downplay this appalling crime. The accused were not local lads from Leamington. They were illegal migrants who arrived in the UK months earlier. And the victim was not a young woman. She was a 15-year-old schoolgirl. From start to finish, this case has been shrouded in secrecy. The police should have been transparent at the start, and the case should never have been heard behind closed doors in the youth court. The police decision to describe the child victim as a woman was labeled sick by Shadow Home Secretary Chris Phillip, who added, the natural instinct of the authorities is to cover up the fact that thousands of crimes, including the blank of young girls, are committed by illegal immigrants. The facts should not be hidden. The public deserve the truth. Jahanzeb and Niazal lured their victim away from where she had been socializing with friends on a sunny day in May before dragging her towards a dark park as night fell. Realizing what was happening, the schoolgirl recorded a harrowing 3-minute clip on her phone which captured her weeping and saying, "You're going to blank me." The footage, which was played to a court, was so appalling that one of the boys' own banisters warned it would lead to rioting if the public were to see it. The boys then forced the girl to perform blank sex on them. Jahan Zeb was ultimately jailed for 10 years and 8 months, and Nia Zhao for 9 years and 10 months, but the boys were told they would have been jailed for 18 years if they were adults. And they're not even going to do that 10 years and 8 months and that 9 years and 10 months because Great Britain, I think, only has you do like 65% of your time. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong, but I believe that's the case. Yet, despite the seriousness of the offense, District Judge John Bristow decided to conduct the trial himself when their case came before the Coventry Youth Court earlier this year. At this stage, the press were completely unaware of the real nature of the case due to Warwickshire police suggesting the accused were from Leamington and no journalists were present. It meant the entire case was effectively due to be heard behind closed doors until the boys changed their pleas to guilty on the first day of the trial. Further farce followed. Despite overwhelming evidence against the boys, the district judge agreed to have a so-called Newton hearing because the defendants complained their crimes were not as serious as made out by the prosecution. Jahan Zeb claimed simply that he was drunk, while Nazal sought to minimize the predatory attack by arguing he believed his underage victim was consenting, even though this belief was unreasonable. The sentencing judge later said the decision to hold this hearing was impossible to justify as neither defendant gave evidence nor called any evidence to support their case. She said, "I'm very surprised that this was dealt with in the youth court and didn't immediately come up to the Crown Court given the real seriousness of the offenses. It seems surprising to say the least that resulted in a Newton hearing because the evidence was effectively overwhelming. But the apparent blunders did not end there. As revealed last week by the Daily Mail, the two Blankists were then allowed to roam the streets for almost a month after their guilty pleas on October 21st due to a district judge agreeing to remand them into the care of the local authority. So they didn't even have a family to be remanded to. They were allowed to just roam. This is justice in Great Britain. They were only locked up in a youth detention to await sentencing 29 days later on November 19th when their case finally reached Crown Court for the first time and the judge immediately overturned the youth court's decision. Warwickshire police have now accepted the victim should not have been described as a young woman in the force's initial witness appeal. You think? A spokesperson said, at the time of the charge for blank, the two charged individuals were residents in Leamington, so therefore the information given was accurate in terms of their home address. While we appreciate guidance is now in place to release the ethnicity and nationality of suspects at point of charge, there was no such guidance in place at the time in May of 2025. There should have never have needed to be any guidance. This is common sense. We acknowledge that we referred to the victim as a young woman in the original witness appeal. We subsequently referred to her as a girl in all further updates. The original appeal is now amended. How disgusting. How disgusting. There aren't the words in the English language to describe this betrayal of the English people. If you appreciate true reporting of what's really going on, make sure you follow me. And don't forget to leave a like.